Today is February 13th, 2018. My name is Tom. I'm here with John on the CNN show The United Shades of America. It's a show where this guy, Kamau Bell, he has these philosophical conversations with very controversial people. Like he had a conversation with Richard Spencer, and he has conversations with KKK members and all these people who have very controversial views.
Is he like a comedian, like a black comedian?
And he had this conversation with Richard Spencer, which I found pretty funny. Richard Spencer he's some kind of white nationalist.
He's like the alt-right, one of the alt-right leaders.
The two of them had a conversation, and Kamau Bell was laughing, and he was so friendly, and it made the conversation like really, it was really entertaining to watch, even though what Richard Spencer was saying was horrible. It was still like he turned what normally would have been a very unpleasant interaction into like a funny interaction. I think that takes a lot of skill on Kamau's part, and I think he's really talented.
A lot of self-control too.
Yeah.
Because, like I said before, it's so easy to have that knee-jerk, put on the defensive, and you're arguing from emotion, from a negative emotion. It seems like you once you get to that place of it's more like I want to push this guy, I want to dominate this person, rather than I want to find the truth.
Yeah.
And that's when you get into so much confusion, and terrible conversation.
Sometimes positive emotions kind of rule us, and sometimes negative emotions are kind of in charge of us. And when the negative emotions are in charge of us, that's when we punch people in the face out of anger. And negative emotions never lead to anything good. They're just destructive. It's like when you curse someone out when you know you shouldn't, but you're so angry, you're so frustrated,
I think that's actually this is a really interesting topic. I was thinking earlier about activism, like how do you create change?
Yeah.
Or how do you make truth be known? And most people point towards Martin Luther King or whatever and say, or Gandhi, and say everything must be done peacefully. That's the best way to create change. But then sometimes it's not enough. Sometimes you do need people screaming. Sometimes you do need anger just to get the issue known. For the Black Lives Matter protests, they did so many peaceful protests, and they never got any media coverage, and nobody knew who they were. But the minute they started, screaming and stopping traffic in the middle of the highway, then all of a sudden, they were, the whole nation knew who they were. And it's hard to say whether or not that's a positive or a negative for what their goals are. Civil rights movement, there was a lot. It wasn't just peaceful. There was a lot of violence too, and it's hard to say whether or not the peaceful protests would have done anything without the violence stuff happening too, to make people in power understand that this is a serious issue that needs to be addressed. For example, Christopher Hitchens was notorious for being extremely, it's called the hitch slap, when he would hit you with, he studied debating, and but he was very pointed in his argument style, and he would try to make the person he's arguing with angry, and he seemed like he argued from a place of anger, and he got so much notoriety for that, and so many people listened to what he was saying because he had that way of speaking, whereas somebody like Richard Dawkins, who's much less aggressive in his style of communication, I feel like he didn't get as much, he wasn't as pervasive into those communities to actually be heard.
Diversity of the way people present certain ideas is a good thing. I don't feel like I can generalize and say all atheists should present their arguments with the exact same demeanor.
Right.
Like they should all be perfectly polite. I think it's helpful to have a few people getting a little annoyed and showing some assertiveness, because different people respond to different things. David Silverman, who's an atheist, he has a more assertive tone Like I've seen him on Fox News, and it makes it a little more entertaining. That attracts more viewers, and
Yes, right. It becomes drama.
yeah,
But that's also a huge downfall, I think, of mainstream news, is that it favors, to get the most eyeballs to watch your show and thus get more people to watch the advertisements, which is ultimately the goal.
yeah,
You want to create drama instead of create meaningful dialogue that reaches truth. For example, like the Fox News or MSNBC will bring on guests that represent an extreme point of view that's not really the middle of what people are thinking, just to make it more entertaining to watch. But it doesn't really add value it doesn't add real value to like understanding the reality or the truth of the situation.
when I think about philosophy and politics, I tend to only really think of the most strident speakers.
Yeah.
I kind of overlook all the people who are much calmer and have much more moderate, neutral
Right.
views.
That's a huge problem, I think, of the human condition. And it goes, I think it might be the single greatest reason for science being so misunderstood. Because scientists are so boring. Literally, I can just see millions of people just turning off TV immediately when a scientist comes on and talks about their research on stem cells or whatever.
Yeah.
So nobody wants to hear somebody calm talking.
Yeah.
It's the total opposite of what we need, but we just don't. We like to see Kim Kardashian or like Jersey Shore, some drama, we just gravitate towards, as human beings, we gravitate towards more emotional speaking rather than speaking from a completely factual, rational place.
I love Bill Nye's shows. He did Bill Nye the Science Guy, but now he's doing Bill Nye Saves the World. He adds his own style of humor and enthusiasm to his shows, and that makes it a lot less dry.
Yeah. Then there needs to be a creativity associated with truth telling in order for it to get out. It needs to be irresistible. It's too bad that it turns out the people that are doing the best work on what's really true are usually the people that are least extroverted or interesting to hear talk.
Brian Greene is a great physicist. I think he's a great speaker. He really makes it lively. He's been in some documentaries, and you can tell when you hear him speaking, you can tell he's fascinated by it.
I'd say that it's smart to stick to the truth for as much as you can without totally killing a relationship or I don't know, even if it does kill a relationship, sometimes it's much better to tell the truth.